Hello, hello. My name is April Malone with Yes, I Work for Home, and this is the podcast. Today I have Derrick Michaud with us from not Nashville. It's Memphis, Tennessee. Derrick, go on in or come on in and introduce yourself. Let us know what you're doing, how you're working from home, and who you're serving.
Thank you, April. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. So I'm in the Memphis area. I'm actually just south of Memphis in Mississippi. So the way that works is Memphis borders the state line. So you can be in a Memphis suburb, and it just happens to be over the state line. So I'm technically in Hernando, Mississippi specifically, but it's like Memphis. I'm 15 minutes from Memphis. I've been here since 2011, so it's a fun place. But yeah, so I'm glad to be here on your podcast. Working from home is something I've been doing full time for the last few years now. I started my own company, and it's a podcast agency. So we service clients from all over the world, actually, that need help with their editing, their graphic design, video editing, all the different aspects needed for a well-produced podcast. So not only do I get to work from home because all my clients are virtual, but so is my team. Everyone's virtual. With this day and age with technology, it's amazing what you can do. So I've been doing that for several years now. Finally built a nice little studio set up where I have nice lights and everything and a backdrop again. I appreciate your backdrop. Um, and it's awesome. I think no one can complain about working from home. And when you have your own business and you are more control of your schedule, and it's just, if you're someone that is self-motivated and can hold yourself accountable well, it's awesome. It's a good way to live, you know.
So, did you do when you moved to Memphis, was it your plan to work from home or did it just kind of fall into your lap?
This whole podcasting career of mine happened by mistake in a way. Not by mistake, but so a little backstory. I was a full-time touring musician, which I used to live in Nashville. When you mentioned earlier about Nashville, that might have been somewhere in my bio too. That could have
I think
been
so.
confusing. So when I moved to Memphis to settle down a little bit, I had a child. I continued to play as a musician locally. Played at a local church, played in local bars and a couple different bands. But in order to do that, you need to have other jobs.
Hmm.
You need side hustles. I used to be the king of side hustles in order to almost pay my bills, right? It was always a struggle. But the number one thing was I'm a musician. So not only do I need other work to help pay the bills, but you need flexibility because later, from like 2016 to about 2020, I was back on the road on a fairly consistent basis. So you leave for a week, you come home, you need work. Like you can't, if you work at a warehouse, you can't just leave whenever you want. So
Yes.
so that brings us to the end of 2017. I was looking for another hustle, and I found a website called Upwork. Are you
Hmm.
familiar with
Oh
Upwork?
yeah. I
And
actually am on Upwork as I haven't used it recently, but not only as a worker, someone who can like freelance or do ghostwriting and things, but also I've used it to help find people to help me with stuff before too.
absolutely, I do both.
Yep.
I ended up getting work. Now I hire people off of it
Yep.
too. It's a great platform. So I think I Googled work from home. Like seriously, those keywords, work from home. I wanted to get as specific as possible. Not only did I want another side hustle, but I was like, I just want to find something that all I need is my laptop for. Is there
Hmm.
anything that I can do? So now I can take it with me. That was my main angle on that is if I can find something that I can do on my computer, then I can take it on the road with me and still work. So I found Upwork, and then I see this demand for podcast editing, audio editing. was like, I can do that.
Mhm.
And slowly just started building my profile. And one client turned into three, turned into four, and it just built to a point where in June of 19, I decided to flip the switch and make it my number one priority and actually make it an LLC and start hiring people to build the business and offer more services. Because to that point, all I could really do was edit.
Mhm.
That's all you're really going to get from me. Do you need help editing? I'm your guy. But if you need some graphic design and someone to write your show notes, I'm certainly not a transcriptionist. That would take me a week to, transcribe a show. So I brought in people that could offer these services that I couldn't, and also other editors to take stuff off my plate so then I could start transitioning more into the CEO of it,
How long were
to
you running it all yourself, just for the editing part and just helping people? You said you sometimes had 3 or 4 people at a time.
Well, I had about a year and a half. I was just a solopreneur, as I like to
Mhm.
call.
Mhm.
By the time I started the business, I had maybe 10, 12 clients that I was just managing on a fairly regular basis, some more consistent than others.
That's
Um,
a lot, actually, because just my experience with doing 1 or 2 episodes a week, we try to do 2, and I just have one person helping me with the
mhm,
editing and the making the graphics. And
mhm.
you know, I was actually trying to transcribe my own, and I actually have a background in transcription. I was a medical transcriptionist for 17 years. So like
Wow.
if anyone can transcribe their own, it should have been me, and it kicked my butt.
Hmm.
Because the conversational style that we have is a little different than the medical, dictation that I was doing before.
Oh,
And
I'm
we speak
sure.
very quickly, and 2 people, sometimes cross speak. It was kind of eye-opening to realize that it would
Mhm,
take me longer than 4 hours to do a 45-minute to an hour episode. And some of them took me 8 hours. And I was like, and that
mhm.
was even using speech recognition technology. Like I was using Otter AI, and
Yeah.
maybe Otter isn't as great as some of the other ones out there, but yeah.
The money you're going to spend on hiring someone to do that is so valuable because of the time you get back.
Right?
And that was when I started hiring. Um, that was my MO. Like a dollar spent is a minute saved.
Yeah.
And on the front end, I was giving up some money to editors that I had no business giving up. I
Mm,
still, I needed that income,
yeah.
but I needed to also buy time. That was my gold, was time.
Mhm.
So yeah, 8 hours on a transcript. You know, that
No,
is that is
no,
breaking your neck, for.
honestly, and at some point we just quit. This podcast isn't well monetized. Like it's not monetized currently. I would love to have some sponsors, but that's not something that I've prioritized. Like just trying to get to the point where I get people, to interview and to get the show notes and to get, the QA done to make sure everything is matching the numbers and the names and everything. That's about as much bandwidth as I have, had because I'm still working other gigs at this time.
Mhm,
So the goal would be, eventually to be able to just, not only have it monetized where it would pay for itself, to pay for my editor and everything. But yeah,
mhm.
I hear what you're saying. Like that the time thing is very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned you have one person that's handling your needs right now, which includes
Hmm.
some graphic work and stuff. Um, and that's awesome. There's plenty of people out there that can do it all. You know, my thing is I couldn't, but one of the selling points too is sometimes what can happen is a client will ask you, "Are you doing all of this?" No, I'm not. I have a team,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
and they like that. They definitely like that because now they feel more secure.
Mm,
They know that it takes a lot to trust a solopreneur to handle 5 different things because how many more clients does that person have? How taxed is that person? So
right.
having a team can be a good selling point. People understand, there's some infrastructure, there's some strength behind this guy, Derrick from Shelby Row Productions, but they only still have to deal with one person. That was the other thing. we want all these things done. I feel better knowing that you have a team doing it, but I don't want to talk to them. I just want to deal with you or one person. And that's kind of the secret sauce in a way.
So you end up being more the face of your company and then
Yeah.
let the others help you with the support. So you just mentioned Shelby Row Productions. Why don't you go ahead and tell us how you got that name? Since at first I thought, who is Shelby?
Well, and I know my YouTube channel is Shelby Rowe, and I'm like, I talked to my producer. I'm like, it feels like people are gonna think that's my name, you know. But it's a neat little story, and it ties in with Nashville, Memphis. So I wanted to represent both cities because they're a huge part of my life. You know, again, being a professional musician living in Nashville. And I moved there from Maine. So I made a big move and I was in Nashville for several years. And then out to Memphis I go for varying reasons. So when it came time to thinking of name, I just thought it'd be kind of cool to, at least, you know, in my heart, know that it's representing two cities. So Shelby is Memphis. And the reason why that represents Memphis is it's the county. Shelby County is Memphis. There's a big road that goes through here, Shelby Drive. I haven't read the history books in Memphis, but Mr. Shelby, whoever this guy is, that's why his name is everywhere. The word Shelby is very synonymous with Memphis. And then Row represents Nashville because there's an area of Nashville called the Music Row. And it's like a 4-block section where all of the major record labels and publishing houses and a lot of the old legendary recording studios are all located. It's all very concentrated in this one spot. Nowadays, though, God, there's thousands of studios in Nashville, and everyone's bedroom is a studio. So,
Oh yeah.
but it's still cool. It's still a historic area of Nashville, and it's called Music Row. So I was like, Shelby Row. I
I
thought
had
it
a
had a
friend
little twist to it.
I had a friend who moved to Nashville to be, I guess, a recording engineer. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
I was a music major actually when I did my 4 year, but I actually never was good enough to actually get to record. So I don't know the terminology very well. But I was really surprised when I went to go visit. I was friends with his wife, and she brought me to go see his studio. And I was really surprised to just walk into a house. And they were like,
Yeah.
yes, this is the studio. And I guess
Mhm.
they've really converted a ton of houses into recording studios.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it works because again, less nowadays because there's so much availability, but a lot of the way it used to be is if you were in a band and you went to record in a nice recording studio, you only had, let's say, 10 to choose from. Now you have
Mm.
hundreds and hundreds, but you might need a studio that you don't live near. You know, the record label's funding this. You need a place to stay. A lot of studios will have lodging. It will be attached to a place, so you're
Oh.
actually sleeping there. So a lot of the studios in Nashville, that's why a lot of them feel like a house too,
Mhm.
because that way bands come in from Iowa because they want to record in Nashville, and they have enough money to get 2 weeks of studio time. They just live there, and there's little
Yeah.
kitchenettes and bedrooms and showers, so they're there. And it's also cool because they can just write. If it's their studio 24 hours a day for 2 weeks, they're right there. In the middle of the night, they might have an idea and they can go down and record. So you see a lot of that.
Are you seeing a lot of people do a crossover from the musicians recording into the podcast recording? Like, you are not the first person I've interviewed actually from the Nashville area who's doing this.
Well, my connection and bridge into this was actually radio. I
Okay.
used to work in radio off and on from 95 to 2005. Um, I did several different things, but the last 2 years I was in radio, I was a commercial producer. I made
Okay.
commercials for a radio group in Portland, Maine. It was 3 FM stations and 3 AM stations all in one building. And that's what got me going on editing,
Okay.
audio editing, and making those commercials. So when it came time to seeing this demand for podcast editing, that was the connection. Like, oh, I can do that. And I also had a mind on how to format a show: intro, outro, mid roll, post roll, pre roll. I already had a grasp on that. Now, the musician part is, again, that goes back to my earlier story. I got into podcasting because I needed another thing.
Yeah.
When you're a musician, you end up having. I remember one year I had 9 1099s for taxes. 9.
Yeah.
And 3 of those were bands. So that means there was 6 other. I used to host trivia nights locally at the restaurants and bars around town.
Mm-hmm.
I had
Your
I had a
radio voice.
part-time. Yeah, and what's odd is I'm not a people person. I'm kind of shy, but you get me in front of a microphone and I'm reading questions, it's pretty easy. I worked in a part-time insurance job where I would just take pictures of cars that had been in accidents. I used to drive Uber. I've driven Lyft. All these different things that I've done, all for the sake of serving the goal, which was always just to be a working musician.
To be flexible. Yeah.
To
So
be
that you
flexible.
can go and do a road show if you need to.
Mhm.
I had a friend who, I met him traveling overseas with the organization. That's another different story. But he was a Nashville musician, and he did, I feel like, genius, like super smart guy. And I think that when he was between shows, between tours, he would work with a carpenter and do like
Mhm.
what was it? The edge work that you have like by the floor, between the floor and the wall. What do you call that?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, just tacking on the little boards to, like, I don't know.
Mhm.
There's a word that's escaping me today. Everyone else that's listening knows. Anyone that knows me knows that I can get a little flaky
It's
sometimes on my
is it the
vocabulary.
floorboards?
Well,
Something like
it's kind of like the paneling, or like the molding that you have at around the top of your. There's another little one. It's like just a little bit.
that? Yeah.
Anyway, that word that everyone else knows except for me, and you. He would just tack it on, and he just had like a good relationship with this carpenter and would like come
Mhm.
on and pinch hit, with him to help him get a job, done a little faster. But it's like you'd have to really build that relationship with someone and be
Yeah.
like, hey, I am literally temporary, in and out, I'm here when I'm here and I'm not when I'm not.
Mhm.
Did you, because Lyft and Uber, you can pick up and you can stop at any time, right? They're super
Anytime. Yeah.
flexible.
You just on your phone, boom, you're in work, and that's why I
Yeah.
did it. And I would drive in Nashville too. If I was in Nashville for work, I'd just turn my app on. And when I had downtime, I would drive in Nashville.
Oh, so you can work in other regions then.
I had to sign up for Nashville too and go through the
Okay.
same process. But the I just had a thought in here. Oh, so you hit a strong point there with carpentry. There are some things out there. There's some fields out there that musicians you'll find do painting, carpentry, serving, waiting
Yep.
tables, because those are fairly flexible. Yeah, you build a relationship with a carpenter that if they always need help, and if you're like, hey, I'm here for the next week, come on, I'll pay
Yeah.
$100 a day for the next 5 days to be a gopher. Go for this. Can you do that for me?
Right.
It's very flexible in that way. And then I've waited tables back when I was in Nashville, and built a relationship with a manager and just was like, hey, I want to keep working here. I'm going to be gone a lot. Can you keep me on like the W-4 or W-2, whatever it is? I might be gone for a month, but then I'll be back for a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Can I at least dress up, come in, and ask anyone if they want to give up a shift? Which is always a server is always like, I'll go home. Yes, please send me home. So I would do that. He did enough. He did something where I stayed in the system, and then I'd come home from the road, and I just, hey, you want a night off, or hey, do you want any days off this week? Or I'd get 3 different servers say, hey, can you pick up this shift, that shift, and then I'd fill my week up.
So you were like a sub. So did you always know your schedule like a week in advance, or would you literally just show up and be like, I'm ready right now?
I would know in advance, so I could definitely call ahead a little bit.
Mm.
But there was also plenty of times I'd be home for a week and not go there. I didn't want to work, so
I thought of the
uh,
word. It's trim. Trim. The stuff that you put around the floorboards.
that's it. The trim, yes.
It was not even a hard word.
It's a very short word, just 4 letters.
I have a lot of experience with waiting tables too, but that's lots of nights and weekends, and it can compete with, the performance times. So I could see why you would want to, be a little flexible there.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'd interviewed a couple times, different places, and because I wasn't available the week on weekends, they're like, "Sorry."
yeah,
That's where they need. I mean, and it makes sense. It's the busiest, and that's when they need the most people. But there's also places out there that they'll take whatever they can get. You
you,
can work Monday through Thursday. Okay, cool.
yeah. You didn't tell us what kind of music you were into or are into.
So what I'm into and what I always had to play are two different things.
Tell me more.
So over the last several years, I've had to play a lot of country music. That's what pays. It, people love it. Classic country, mid 2000s country, current pop country. It's where it's at. So I do not listen to this music, but I'll play it, and it's fun to
And,
play. And it
and
can be
what
fun to play.
what do you play?
Bass, play with bass
All
guitar.
right. Yeah. My dad was a bass
Uh,
guitarist.
yeah, it's a fun gig, you know. But over earlier in my career, I had to play a lot of dance stuff, which was fun. I've definitely played a lot of disco and funk, and I've been in some bands that really stretched me out as far as having to play different genres, rock,
Versatility.
country, blues, yeah, and it was great. It was a good learning experience. But if I'm driving down the highway, I listen to hard rock,
All
Metallica,
right.
Slipknot, Kings of Leon, Nirvana, like old '90s stuff. I like the more aggressive stuff when for pleasure.
And have you ever gotten to play in a band like that? You don't have enough
No,
hair to be in a hair band.
those days are behind me. No, it's I would love because I play guitar too, and when I play guitar, I like playing the aggressive Metallica style
Mhm.
stuff, and there's just no bands that do that. And if there are bands out here that do that, they're not working. You can't
Mm.
you can't go to the local pub and start playing Metallica and
Yeah.
Megadeth and all this
Yeah.
hardcore music. They want to hear country. They want to hear Luke Bryan is what they want to hear.
And do you think that's just being where you are, like where you live? Because honestly, like I had country fans up in Minnesota. I live in Arizona. My neighbor across the street from me is a country
Hmm.
drummer. Like he plays in a country band. I didn't even know that existed in Arizona, but it does.
I was naive when I moved from Maine, thinking only the South is in the country. Nope.
It's
Like
everywhere.
I mean, I've played in over 30 states.
Hmm.
I've played in Austria twice. I've played 8 weeks total in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. Everyone
Country?
loves country.
No.
Yes.
When I was in Austria, I was like walking around Vienna because I was there for a layover, one of those trips I had
Yeah.
taken over to Europe.
Oh,
And I
beautiful
mean,
city.
it was like, string quartet playing with people in ballroom dresses doing the classical, dancing type things. But you never know.
Break out an acoustic and play Johnny Cash. You, they'll love it. They love it, and also just American music in general. So you already got a leg up in that. They love American music. So, and then yeah, if you play some Johnny Cash or Waylon Jennings, some old school country, Germans love it too.
That's true. That's true. Now, my mom and my dad, they met. This is I was just telling I guess it was my younger sister. I'm the oldest of 10 kids. I'll just tell you a little bit of my family
Woo.
history. But my mom and my dad got married in 1978. They had me. I was a product of polka music. My mom was in waitressing in a German
Mm-hmm.
ballroom, and my dad was touring in a German band playing the tuba, wearing the lederhosen, and the waitress and the tuba player they hooked up, and that's me. So
Yeah.
and my dad actually died when I was 8 years old, and my mom remarried and had a whole bunch more kids. So I'm telling my younger sister, who's 17, no, 25 years younger than me, she's 17, um, that I'm the product of polka music, and we're laughing about it, but I can't really begrudge it because that's part of my history. But my dad was really into John Denver.
Yeah,
His,
classic. Yeah. That's late 70s, early 80s, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, icon. Absolute icon. Great songwriting, great music, melodies. Yeah, that stuff lives on forever.
We watched Hee Haw when I was a kid.
Well, funny story about polka bands is I've played Wisconsin a lot.
Yep.
And there's this one place, I forget what part of Wisconsin it was, but it was a weekend gig, as you call it. You play Friday, Saturday night. Saturday, during the day, there'd be a polka band.
Yep.
Massive, like 8-piece band.
Yep.
And they would precede us. So we would catch the last 30 minutes of their set before then we would start. And it was interesting. It's such a unique style of music. It's just like, in a way, it's like jazz and blues and reggae, where it's specific. You know, if you're into playing polka music, it's a very specific vibe. And not to dig into the deep weeds of musicianship, but the kind of scales and chord progressions, and there's a reason why polka sounds the way it does, but there's also a reason why every polka song kind of sounds similar.
Yeah.
Reggae, after a while, reggae is just like, okay, every song sounds the same. Blues, jazz is a little different. Jazz can go in 1,000 different directions, but so it's just, as a musician, I'm definitely not into polka. I don't listen to it.
Oh yeah.
But to watch it and hear it and see all these people play it, every one of them wearing a Green Bay Packers jersey too. It's like interesting. When I was in St. Croix, the big music down there is it's a form of reggae. We've played in Louisiana. The big thing down there is called Zydeco, which is kind of a mixture of all that stuff. And it's to be able to see regional music that way too is really cool.
Whenever I hear, I don't know if it's just Mexican music, but it can also have a little bit of that polka vibe, like the bump, bump, bump. It's very da, 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 da.
Absolutely. Yep.
I'm like, wait a minute, what am I listening to?
Now let me really geek out on some music, because heavy bands like Slipknot and some of these other more thrashy kind of bands, as you call thrash bands, they have a very fast drum beat. It's called blast beats.
The
double kick, and then the snare is just like. Yep. Take a polka song, and maybe triple the beats per minute, and that's the drum beat they use. It's the same thing. It's the exact same drum beat as a polka beat, only 100 beats per minute faster.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's interesting. Well, and I wondered, if you take away the drums, what are you left with?
With polka?
No, with metal.
I mean, yeah, the drums fill a lot of space in metal.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of the perpetual motion, the energy of the music pushing forward is the drums.
You were talking about jazz and how it can go 1,000 directions, and one of the things that I always I didn't begrudge, but something that I was a little sad about as I entered into like my I was taking jazz classes in college, and I didn't grow up listening to jazz. I grew up listening to country and polka, but I didn't have that like internal language of jazz, and so I couldn't hear and feel the sounds, and so I need to make sure to expose my kids more to it now, so they could it's like learning another language, and it's really more difficult if you didn't hear it from the time that you were young.
Yeah, I would say the musical language for jazz is more intricate. It'd be like learning German as opposed to learning some Spanish. I'm just using analogies here, but Spanish, French, those are definitely, it's not easy to learn another language, but you've been in Austria, you've heard how they speak, you've read their newspapers, totally different game. It's not part of the romantic language base, like Latin. So French and Spanish, they have some similarities. English, but German.
Just to be fair, I was only in Austria for one day, but
Yeah,
no, and I would even say it's even more different. Like some of the tonal languages, Vietnamese and Chinese and,
yeah,
the Mandarin and things
absolutely.
are so different. And I felt like that with
Absolutely.
jazz. Like it
Yep.
was just like, wow, my mind doesn't know how to go those directions.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I would say that the flexibility that you are seeking as a musician or were seeking as a musician reminds me a lot of some of the flexibility that people are looking for who are parents, especially of young children. I know for me right now, I'm in the middle of a job hunt, except for because I have children and because we're in the pandemic, it still would need to be something that we can figure out the flexibility. My husband has some flexibility. I would need at least some, in case the kids are going to be home again, quarantining or isolating.
Mhm.
We just went through that this weekend. We weren't sure what my kids' symptoms were. And so we kept her in her bedroom for 3 days by herself. Obviously, we were feeding her and giving her lots of fun things to do, but it sucked. And then thank God, our COVID tests were negative and we're like, okay, you can be part of the family again. But where we are in this society right now, flexibility, I think, is even more important to a lot of people than maybe that bottom dollar.
I The pandemic hit at a perfect time for me. I know that
Tell
sounds
us.
ridiculous to say, but
Yeah.
I first off, I had just moved to a two-bedroom apartment that I needed to furnish.
Mm.
I went from a furnished studio to a two-bedroom apartment in January of 2020
Uh-oh.
and had to buy all new furniture and everything was getting shipped in. And I managed to get everything before everything shut down.
Wow.
So,
Furniture has been a really tough one.
oh my God, yeah. Like a friend of mine was like, I bought a couch, Ashley Furniture or whatever online,
Mhm.
2 months waiting I got my couch in a week, like I got
I've
so
heard
lucky there. I got
eight
lucky there, but
months, 12 months.
yeah,
I've heard it
it's
all.
awful. But the working from home thing, by the time the pandemic hit, I was still playing in just a couple bands. That went away. I
Yeah.
lost that. That was fine with that because the
Overnight.
business, yeah, it was gone. I had I think 17 dates over through the year from all over the place, gone.
Yeah.
Um, but by that time, my business was doing better, so I didn't need it. But here
Did
I
you
work from
find,
home.
oh, go ahead.
Well, here I work from home, and in the weirdest time of our lives and probably the history of the country, where
Yeah.
you got to stay home. Everyone stay home. Like people losing their jobs, and it was just awful for so many people. My business grew. Like I got to stay home. I didn't have to deal with what it's like to have my daughter not in school. I'm home already.
Yeah.
So there's that. A lot of people decided to start podcasts during the pandemic, so
I
I
was
did
going to ask
well.
you that. Yeah. It was your big
I did.
uptick.
Yes, absolutely. Now this summer I it balanced out. This summer I ended up losing a bunch of stuff because people were allowed to have a summer pretty much.
Yeah.
Even though the pandemic's technically worse than it was, people were like, I'm out of here. Um, so yeah, there was either people that wanted to start a new one or I had current clients that doubled up. Like they had free
Okay.
time. Like they
Yeah.
started doing more episodes. So there was that. And then my daughter and I got COVID
Oh.
in January of this year. 2 weeks quarantine.
Mhm.
I could still work sick. And she was doing her homeschooling, which is a whole other ball game there,
We've
virtual.
got 3 kids. I totally
Uh,
understand.
so but what happens to the parents that work 9 to 5s, you know, and then their kid has to quarantine or the school goes virtual,
Hmm.
but the parents still have to work. It's so crazy out there. I don't know what it's like because I've been very fortunate. I didn't have to experience any of that because I work from home.
Now, you are originally from Maine. Do you have any support network, like friends or family in the Memphis area?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been here long enough. I have my friends. My best friends are all still in Nashville. That's where
Mhm.
I
Okay.
I moved to Nashville with some friends from Maine, and they're still very close friends of mine. And then all the musicians that I've toured with over the years. My core is still in Nashville, but I moved out this way to be a parent.
Right.
So I
We
had to.
are, I think, 24 hours drive from both of our sets of grandparents. And
Okay.
so we moved to Arizona for my husband's job. And I was already working from home, so I kept my job. But that's where things got real. When the pandemic started and we were like, who would we call if one of us had to drive the other one of us to the hospital because we were sick? Who would we call to take our kids who could
Yeah.
be, infectious? So, really quick, things got real.
Oh,
You're
very.
like, and then what would we do? Like if someone came to our door and knocked and said, we need to take our kids to we need to take someone to the hospital. Can you take our kids? What would we say? Like that was when, that was one of the most serious conversations I think we ever had.
Yeah, it was so radical. I felt like I was living in a science fiction movie,
I
you
think I
know.
still feel like that right now.
What Not to go on a tangent here, but what was interesting is I have custody of my daughter, but we share, it's a mom and dad share the kid, right?
Yeah.
And visitation, everyone has different visitations and stuff. We have our own version.
Mhm.
But that means that a body that can carry COVID is going back and forth
Oh yeah.
to two houses. And no mention of it in the news. I even talked to my lawyer. I was like, what is this? Like, does one of us need to say sorry to the other one? You can't get your kid back? And she's like, no, you definitely don't do that. You have to, no matter what's going on with this pandemic, you have to continue your visitations.
Interesting.
And you never heard anything about that.
Mhm.
People stay home from work, groceries, stay in
Oh
a
yeah.
separate room for 3 days, spray
Yep.
things down, sleep in different rooms, all this stuff. But when it comes to
Yeah.
sharing custody of a child, and that was bizarre to me
Yeah.
that there was nothing on that. I know it has
I
nothing to
have
do with
some
working from home, but
Right. I have some friends who do work from home, who are sharing custody, and but one of them needed to go back to work on site. And so they had to keep their bubble so small,
mhm,
that and the dad was a teacher, so he would teach outdoors.
yeah,
And it's just yeah, so basically you control what you can, I guess.
yeah. Do your best, do the
Mhm.
best you can. That's all you can do. So, but down here in Mississippi, it's a very red state.
Mhm.
So you can
But be careful.
imagine,
But I can imagine.
so, you know, um, and gosh, we can debate things and left and right, but, um, the less precautions down here for sure,
Yeah, and
so,
I feel it too in Arizona. Our governor is not making the same rules as other governors are. And
mm,
there's no masks in the schools here. So I don't know if
same here,
Mississippi, yeah.
same here. Yeah.
And so it was the most heart-wrenching thing to make a decision of what to do. We could technically keep our kids home for another year, but is that best for our family this year? It's hard to know. Oh
Yeah,
boy, oh boy. um,
exactly.
Talk to me a little bit about your two-bedroom apartment. Is one of these bedrooms your studio and the other,
Yep.
but how do
Right
you
here.
do this?
My bed is right there.
Oh, so
Right.
your bedroom is in your studio.
My studio is in my bedroom. That's probably a better way to put it. So
Got it.
I managed to find this really cool desk on Amazon that's goes to a corner. Like right now as I sit,
Okay.
I have, yeah, it's like this.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
and it's powered. It's got the powered legs so I can
Stand and
stand.
sit. Yep.
So it fits in the corner nicely, and then I could put a monitor right in front of me, and then I have these light panels that clamp to the edge of the desk. I have that. So then I have
Mhm.
my microphone, my little soundboard in front of me. So I was able to pack everything in the computer. I mean, in the corner, and then behind me is just a standard. It's
Like a
really for
photographer's.
photography.
Yeah.
Yeah, just standard stands on each side with a crossbar at the top, and
That's what I have here too. Yep.
I just clamp the backdrop to it. So, and then when I interview with a new client or a potential client, I even throw up my logo in the corner of my screen. So that way I just look, I like presentation. I
Right.
think
And you're
it's
not
important.
showing your bed in the back, but your bed is probably right behind you, right? With the
Yeah.
backdrop in between.
I can almost touch it.
Okay. So you're just cornering off a little section. Do you spend much time in this little corner working when you're not literally talking with someone, or do you work elsewhere in your home?
But this is a great question because I have different things that I do. Majority, yes, right here in my office. This is my Houston, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
my Grand Central. But I always have a laptop on my dining room table.
Okay. A
So
different computer.
yeah, just a laptop. Here I'm
Mm-hmm.
on a PC with a 32-inch screen, and that's
Got
the
it.
other reason why it's just more comfortable here.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm in the kitchen working, cooking, or it's the morning as my daughter's getting ready for school, what have you, I can just pop up my laptop and do an email, or
Mm-hmm.
so I have access to it there. Sometimes I just like I'll just sit at the table and just feel like working there. It's
Mm-hmm.
a different feel. Sometimes I'll sit on my couch with my laptop on my lap, and I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Same.
but what I used to do when I moved to this apartment, I was in a little studio apartment, and those walls got close real quick, and working from home was difficult there. So I would take my laptop and go to a coffee shop. I built this company at a Panera Bread. Like I would go to the same Panera Bread, Memphis, Tennessee, Perkins and Poplar, and even back when I was editing, I'd be editing audio right there at a table while eating a scone.
You must have had a good set of headphones.
Yeah, 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 noise, yeah, so I can cancel out the noise.
Mm-hmm.
But I also bring up that because the Panera Bread thing, or just working at a coffee shop in general, is sometimes I don't necessarily want to socialize with people, but I feel like I need to be around other breathing human beings
Mm-hmm.
because, as you know, working from home, you have a big family, so you probably would love to have true alone time. I get plenty of alone time, and it gets weird sometimes. Sometimes it's just like, "Oh, I got to get out of here,
Yeah. I
pack
told my
up the
husband
laptop.
last night, I told my husband, I'm like, I do not mind one bit working in my closet when I'm engaging with someone in a meeting, or I teach ESL online still, which is kind of trending out right now, but that's a story for another day. But
Mhm.
I told him, but when I'm not like physically talking with someone, physically, you know what I mean, like virtually talking with someone, I
Mhm.
um I start to feel like the walls do kind of close in on me a little bit. There's no window in here. And, if I'm in the zone or I'm watching a video, it doesn't bother me. But eventually, it's nice to just be in the same room as people, even if it's not as
Absolutely.
comfortable. Now, it looks like you have a really cozy chair there. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
It's a standard, it's just standard black fake leather cushiony chair that I got on Amazon. It's not, it's pretty comfortable, but it's cheap. It's a
It's
cheap one. So
cushy.
you
Does
can
it
do
have
it.
the adjustability that you were looking for a
A little
office
bit. I
chair?
mean, it goes up and down, and then I can unlock it. So, whoa, I didn't
Uh-huh.
mean to.
Ooh. Knock over the backdrop.
Hold on a second. Wrong lever.
How can you get back?
But I would say it's not the most ergonomically correct. Like
Yeah.
it's Plus I'm a tall person, so it's not. I wish it went even higher. Um, but I
How
log a lot of hours in this chair too. So
how tall are you, if you don't mind me asking?
6'2".
I talked with someone, an ergonomic specialist, did I guess just for me, ergonomic evaluation. And he said that for the most part, ergonomists generally work with tall people and short people. More short than tall. I think once you hit like maybe that 6'2", 6'4", then you start to get uncomfortable again.
Yeah,
But I think everything is made for people who are probably like 5'10" to 6 foot
yeah.
ish.
If I had $600, I could buy I forget the name of the line, but it's the line that Shaquille O'Neal, you know, is endorsing. You know, he's the face of this company. I forget the name of the company, but obviously, when you think Shaquille O'Neal, he's a massive. So when you sit in those chairs, they're wider, they go higher,
Oh.
and they're incredible. And it'd be perfect for me. I'm obviously not the size of Shaq, but it gave me the height, because even with this chair all the way up, you know, your legs are supposed to be kind of straight out and then your feet flat on the
Yeah,
floor. And I just cross my legs in front of me too, which is bad. Um,
I do that
but
sometimes. I'm 5'3", so I have basically the opposite problem. I can't get things to come low enough. So I
there
like to get them down, and I have to make sure I have an adjustable keyboard tray. Do you have adjustable? You just change your desk height.
I can, yeah. Yeah, so it's not all the way down. I found a nice little sweet spot. But
Yeah.
sometimes I want to work standing up too. So I
Do you
just,
often do that?
not as much as I used to, but then that goes back to my laptop in
Yeah, I was
my,
just gonna say you stand up and you
so,
walk to your other computer.
so another work from home thing I like is there's times where for my job, I need to just think. Like I need to come
Mhm.
up with a list. I need to, you know, just break some things down in my brain to plan for something. What I do is I have a bar top height table. So boom. So I can,
Mm-hmm.
on purpose, I wanted something tall so I can work standing up at it too.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do is I'll move the stool so I can just walk up to the table to my laptop. And as I'm brainstorming and creating whatever kind of list I'm creating, when I feel like I hit a wall, I will pace my apartment. And I'll just pace around, think of something, walk up to the computer, add something to the list, and I'll just pace the whole apartment for an hour working sometimes, because that's how I can think. Where sometimes sitting at a desk, staring out the window, can stagnate that sometimes, for me at
I'm
least.
so I'm so excited. I have a new development that I don't think I've shared with anyone yet, but someone gave me a free treadmill. It's old. It's old. It's like iPod compatible. So we were looking at it, like we hauled it and we had to move things around. I ended up bringing a desk that we had downstairs up into side by side with my husband's desk in his setup in our bedroom.
Mhm.
That I can, it's not a very adjustable desk, but I can get out of here and sit near him now. But we were trying to figure out how could I get the computer on the treadmill, and we were trying to jimmy rig things. We had an adjustable keyboard tray that he ended up never using, but it wasn't wide enough to span to
Mhm.
connect to the handles. And so we just took a, like, literally the kind of shelf that you would put like on your kids' wall, like on a couple of brackets to like hold memorabilia. We just laid that across the arms of the treadmill, and I can still turn things on and off, and it's just me, so I'm not gonna like fall. And it's fabulous because I can walk 1 or 2 miles an hour and still read
Still
and
work.
type. There's certain kinds of work that I wouldn't be able to think and walk at the same time
Right.
that require a lot of focus.
Well,
But there's so
then
much that
that's
I
how.
can.
Yeah, and you schedule your day. I'm big on time blocking, and like
Yeah.
this time, this day, I'm doing this. So you can be like, all right, I'm gonna go for a walk later today. I'm gonna be on that treadmill for 30 minutes. Whatever. What can I do while I'm doing
Yeah.
that?
What I
Then
can do is I can,
you just push
yeah,
stuff to the side. Like I'll do that for the walk. I'll
later.
do that for the walk. Yeah.
I can listen to this podcast because I do review them to make sure that we, edit out like the part where I don't know, sneezed, which by the way, if I sneeze today, don't be surprised because I'm very allergic to my cat. It was just confirmed by my blood work again.
Oh
And
no.
also I think it's like ragweed season right now. So even though the levels are medium, I'm like dying. I sneezed so many times this morning when I was trying to teach my kids English and trying to but yeah, if I walk at about 1 or 2 miles an hour, I can still type, but if I'm not having to type at all, I could, speed it up quite
Mhm.
a bit and still listen and focus. It's
Yeah.
nice. It's
Yeah.
so
When
hot here in Arizona. It's not so easy to like get out and walk in the summertime. So I'm
oh,
so thankful to have a treadmill in the house. Go ahead.
come out to Mississippi with all our humidity. Come on, take some
Yeah.
of it.
Did
It's
you end up
finally breaking. This is when summer finally starts to break a little bit.
Mhm.
But by this time, it's been 2 months of over 100 heat index
Oh
with
yeah. Oh yeah.
humidity. It's just
Oh
like
man.
sweaty, you know?
I grew up in Minnesota though, so I know 100% humidity and
Yeah,
mosquitoes. Were you
yeah.
affected a lot by the storm?
No, we had a little bit of rain, but that's it, you know? So we were lucky for
So
sure.
when your daughter was home with you during her quarantine and the pandemic,
Mhm.
how do you guys work together when you're working and she's working from school? How did you guys set that up?
Well, luckily, you know, she was in seventh grade when this was happening. So
Mhm.
it wasn't like trying to wrangle in a first grader.
Which is what I
So,
have.
so okay, there's a win on my, you know, I
Yeah.
got lucky there. And I just let her have my laptop and set her up in her room at a table and just I let her use my printer, hooked her up. She needed a printer more than I did,
Right.
you know,
Yep.
um and we just did the best we could. It was not fun. It was stressful because
Yep.
the virtual schooling is just, as you know, it's
It's for the
so hard.
birds.
And it's one thing instant well, first off, the parent's the teacher. So now we're teaching because the virtual that they do down here is not Zoom, like teacher in classroom over Zoom where it's in real time.
Mhm,
Here it's called
mhm,
Schoology, and it's
mhm.
just like go to this folder. Here you go. Here's a couple slides to tell you what you need to do. A little 2 minute video from one person that's recorded and fed to 1,000 schools.
Oh,
Very little access to a teacher. So, so all of that, you know, you're trying to teach your child, trying to figure out what it is that we need to do. Now, okay, we do it. Where do we put it?
yep.
Where do we upload it? What is this? And then the next day, you get alerts from the parent portal. This was missing. You got an F on this. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa, whoa! Like, what's going on here? And it's just
You
so
uploaded it
funny.
wrong. Yeah.
It was awful. So leading up to seventh grade and all the way up until we quarantined, I could not like stop my daughter from just almost crying over wanting to do virtual because she thought it was easier because other friends were doing it and like legit like she was mad at me that I was making her go to school because we had the beginning of school in 2021. No, that's this year. So
2020.
fall of 2020. Down here you had a choice. You can either go all virtual or all in school. I chose in school. It's like you need to be in front of a teacher, period.
Mhm.
So I went that route. Well, of course, she didn't like that. Um, well, fast forward to when we actually quarantined and she actually had to experience 2 weeks of virtual. That's all she needed. She was like, I'm
Convinced
out.
her.
Bring
Mhm,
me back to
mhm.
school, please. And ever since that point, anytime there's a threat of a shutdown, she gets scared and
I
nervous
bet.
because of virtual. And part of it is because she probably doesn't want to deal with dad either during virtual
Yeah.
because it would rattle me. So I
Oh
still
yeah.
was able to work. She didn't have any symptoms. I was sick. I felt like crap.
Mhm.
So I'm dealing with that, still having to work and dealing with Schoology. But at the same time, I already live home. I work home. So a lot of people had it much worse than that.
Right. It was January 2021 when we pulled our kids from online school to homeschool them because it was just so much work trying to coordinate with the teachers and like get their work and upload it back up. I'm like, let me just be the teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm I'm done with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But then
It's one thing to try to figure out the math problem. It's everything else surrounding it
yeah,
that is the headache.
it's the coordination and the emails and yeah, and
Mhm.
then now we're the opposite because our kids are in public school right now, but we've had to do some quarantine already because of exposure. And we don't have the new school isn't doing an online version. So basically the kids are home for quarantine and they're getting very little work, very
Mhm.
little communication. So I was like,
Yeah.
communicate with me more. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's tough.
well, why don't we talk a little bit about what's worked for you and what has absolutely not worked for you? Like, is there anything that you have learned over the course of how many years have you been working from home?
It'd be about 2018 is
2006.
when I,
Okay.
2018 is when I got my first client. But I was still doing all the other side hustles, that I needed to leave the house to do.
Hmm.
But honestly, it was because of the pandemic. The pandemic, bless you, the pandemic uh, took away all those other things, and it made it so um,
The coffee shop.
all I had left was here. And then I got sick, and by the time January ended, because I had some lagging effects, I had to get like an inhaler and
Hmm.
some stuff, so it was like a 4-week deal for me. And at that time, I was like, man, because I enjoyed having my weekends. I was really enjoying not having to stress about every other weekend traveling somewhere, and
Hmm.
it's a lot of work and it's exhausting.
Hmm.
I was working at a local church that was eating up a lot of time, and by this time, I had thrown away all these different side hustles just to get them away, even though I needed the money because, again, I wanted time. I was
Yeah.
like, well, I'm not going to drive Uber anymore. That's done. If I drive Uber for 5 hours a day, that's 5 hours a day I should be spending on my business. So I was chipping away things, and ultimately it just came down to music. It was my company and then music because that's what I do. I was a musician. Um, but it was about February of this year. I decided, you know what? I'm all done. I'm done with music. I just kind of retired. I don't
Wow.
travel anymore. I let go of the bands I was in. I left the church band I was in, and that's it. So now my company is the only thing I got going on. So it wasn't until I would say February that I was 100% now work from home.
Okay.
Uh, I'm not earning any money that needs me to leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then when did you start hiring your team?
So that dates further back. So that was June of 19 was when I got my
Okay. Right.
LLC. A friend of mine knew what I wanted to do, and she's like, "Well, now that you're going to be hiring and you're going to be entering a different world," she's like, "You need to get licensed. You need to get the proper, tax number, and you just need to
Yep.
do this right."
Yep.
So that's what I did, and then I got hired my first editor,
Are you
and
hiring locally or nationwide or globally?
anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anyone that's outside the country.
Okay.
But yeah, all 4 time zones.
Right.
So
Yep.
sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's interesting when trying to schedule something. But yeah, I mean, no one has to be local. It's if you are a hard worker and you're accountable and you have good response time and the product is good, game on. And I find with freelancers, that's what you get always anyway.
So everybody that you're working with is working from home and they're spanning does everyone have their own role? Like I know you have someone who reached out to me to be on the
Mhm.
podcast. Do you still have
Mhm.
people that are helping get interviews for others?
So I don't know about my team members as far as getting on podcasts,
Uh-huh.
but I'm gonna give you a few names when we're done.
Okay.
But but yeah, so you met Jocelyn. So
Yep.
she's not on my team per se, but I hire her for a service. So
Okay.
it's a little different. I hire her for that service to help outreach and
Got it.
and get booked because I feel
That's
like
marketing.
guesting. Yeah, I look at guesting,
Yep.
which is like a new term. Guesting
Yep.
is a verb. Uh, is a great way to market yourself, your company,
Absolutely.
whatever it may be. So I'm putting some money into that. That's why I
Mhm.
hired someone that was actually knew what they were doing better than what I would do. But then I have people that are on my team. So I have editors, and then I have a graphic designer. But then my graphic designer does some video editing and audio editing, and then my transcriptionist will write some show notes. But then I have a writer that does the other show notes. So there's some bleed, which is cool. Again, you hire smart people, and they know a few things well.
Okay.
So you can do some bleed like that. But but yeah, I think 12 people now.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, and some of them might work 3 hours a week for me. You know,
Okay.
I'm not employing 40-hour weeks to all these people. They're
Mhm.
all subcontractors. It's just, I'll hire an editor looking for some work, and then he's like, "All right, I'm good. Like you're giving me 3 to 4 hours a week. That's all I can handle right now." Okay, cool.
All right.
You always get these 3 hours, and I'll find someone else next, and I'll fill the next person up. So that's why it's built up where of the 12 people, I have like 7 editors.
Okay. But some
Yeah.
of them can wear more than one hat and cover a
Yes.
little bit.
Yeah.
So tell me again what services you provide for people who come to you and say, I want to have a podcast. Like,
Hmm.
what are they responsible for and what are you responsible for? Or do you have packages where they can kind of pick and choose?
We do have packages on our website, shelbyrowproductions.com. And we'll remind everyone that too at the end of the show. But so there's two things to look at: the startup development phase, and then the management phase from there forward. What's cool about this business model is podcasting is like repeat business. Someone wants to do a podcast, like you're releasing weekly or bi-weekly, whatever, and you want to stay on schedule. So the person you're hiring to edit is getting steady work from you on a weekly basis.
Right.
So that's awesome. But that's the management side. The development side of it is different because it's a one-time kind of approach. It's like what I like to call it is idea to iTunes. You come into me with like, I just have an idea of what I want to do. And then we are like, well, here's the 10 things we need to do and build and record, design cover art. Here's all these assets that we need so then we can syndicate your show and put it on iTunes and Google Podcasts and Spotify and put it everywhere.
Yep.
Once
Do you
you're
have people
published, then we're good. And then we move on to the management side.
do you have people who come to you and say, I want to do a podcast, but I want to use this, that, and the other thing as far as like their hosting and, their equipment? Or do they come to you saying, what do I need and who should I use?
So it varies. We have some that know nothing about engineering or audio stuff. They don't know anything about podcasting. They just decided they want to do it.
Yep.
Or what I also find is a corporation will assign someone on the team, "Hey, we need a podcast, take care of it." And that person's like, they don't know what to do, so, and it goes back to why I started a team and because I was having to say no a lot. Can you do this? No. Well, they're like, well, we need someone that can do it all. So now we can. And I just kept building a team. Every time I discovered a new need, I'd hire someone to fill it.
Okay.
So if someone comes to me with zero done, then they don't even know what a hosting site is. They've never heard of Libsyn. They've never heard of Podbean.
Yeah.
We just take care of them from scratch, and
Good.
if they need cover art in order to syndicate their show, well, we can design it for you because I have a graphic artist now, and they go on and on and on. So, and then I have engineers on my team. Again, Bleed. I have a video editor, like a real deal video editor. That's now my video engineer if someone needs help setting up videos or cameras. I have an audio editor who's also a real deal, straight up engineer. So when a client's like, we don't know what to buy, we don't know how to set it up, I get my man Andrew, and I pay him a fee. We have an agreement, and I'm like, all right, I got to connect you with this client. He gets on a call, he consults. What do they need? What's their scenario? What's their recording situation going to be like? What's their budget looking like? Puts together a list, sends them the links. They buy the stuff. He gets on a Zoom call and helps them set it up, teaches them how to use it. So again, I built it that way because I wanted to be able to provide that service to someone because so many people don't know what to do. It's so foreign to them, but they can create amazing content and they have things to say and they know how to push this content out and they know how to interview people. They know how to package that part of it.
If I would have had someone to talk me through all those steps, it would have been so much faster because
Right.
I got kicked in the butt when I was trying to find out, a podcast hosting. I didn't know if that meant like, how you record it versus, like how you get it out to everyone else on iTunes and Spotify and blah, blah, blah. And I thought that choosing the hosting package would be super, like, choosing the hosting package would be super, like a 10-minute, 20-minute job. And it took me 2 days because
Mhm.
I found out, people recommend Libsyn or, Podbean
Mhm.
and stuff. And I found out really quickly that if I want to record 2 times a week, 45 minutes to an hour or more, I'm going to blow through those packages so fast. It's going to be more
Mhm.
expensive. And so I ended up with Captivate FM, because they
Yeah,
allow you to have more flexibility in how much you publish.
never heard of
Um,
them. Podbean,
Captivate,
I
yeah,
don't know. I'm not going to ask you what you're paying. It's none of my business. But Podbean for like $16 a month can get you unlimited storage.
yeah. I feel
So
like
that
I,
might,
I feel like I compared Podbean when I was making that choice, but
yeah.
it was a little bit overwhelming because there were probably 14 different ones that I was comparing and choosing among. So, or between, yeah, that was not fun. And then
What's
choosing
also,
how to record.
well, there's that. But then another misleading thing is people think that, let's say we'll just use Podbean as an example, or Libsyn, some of the more common names that people
Mhm,
would recognize. They think once we set the hosting up, we're good. Why are we not on iTunes? Why can't I find my show?
mhm,
That is like the big learning curve. That is, and even as we've done it 100 times,
mhm,
it's a pain in the ass.
mhm.
There's so many different hoops you got to jump through. Each platform has their own way of
Yeah,
submitting to, and so that's definitely where we help people out with that because it's so it you could watch a YouTube video and learn it on Google if you wanted to, but what I find is people are like, I still want to deal with it. You can do it
right.
for us.
And
No.
there were like 10 different places. Like they're asking you, do you want to have your podcast available in India? And, all these other places. And you have to make a lot of decisions, but you only have to really do it once. I
Well,
think
yeah, that's
Google
it.
and
Uh,
Amazon and all these things. Go ahead.
mhm. Yeah. So once you do it and you're published, poof, good
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah. I think Amazon podcast has contacted me and be like, we need you to verify again,
Mhm.
1 time. But other than that, that part is, it would be nice to have someone hold your hand through that.
And that's what
I
we
think
do.
I
That's what we
thought that
do.
I was going to record and publish my first episode on like the first week of June of 2020. And it took, I think I recorded it September 2nd. And I don't know if I even published it that week. I think maybe I did. But
Mhm.
yeah, and we had to switch. Like I was going to record on Ecamm, because I thought that I was going to be able to record and stream it live for the first time. And we learned really quick that that wasn't going to work. It's just better to be able to edit and, to fix the mistakes that I'm sure to make because I'm awkward and I misspeak all the time. Yeah. And then it just gives a little bit more, I don't know, it puts my guests to ease or at ease a little bit more, knowing that if they misspeak,
Sure.
we can fix
Sure.
it and they don't have to be worried. And a lot of the people that I interviewed, especially at the beginning, had never interviewed before. And so
Yeah.
they were nervous and that
Foreign to a lot of
extra,
people. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
I like to believe that I'm easy, approachable, that it'll make it comfortable, for you.
Hmm.
Um, but now that I've actually been doing this for some time, it's been a year. I do have a lot more people reaching out to me to be on the podcast. I'm finding a lot of male entrepreneurs are reaching out to me, and I'm trying to
Really.
find more. I'm trying to have more people that are employees, or working with the whole team. Yeah. So you use Jocelyn as part of
Yeah.
your interview
She,
connection type work.
yeah. Yeah. So I have someone that's on my team. Her name is Francesca. She
Mm-hmm.
is actually one of my production assistants. I got to a point where I needed help with just the tasking and the managing of the workflow and all the different assets that all the
Yeah.
traffic that's involved with handling by now on a core basis. Again, slow summer, but it's about 30 to 35 clients that we balance now.
All right.
So it's a lot of traffic. It's a lot of emails. It's a lot of craziness. So anyways, I have two managers in place. Well, again, wearing different hats and everyone has different talents, multiple talents. Well, Francesca was also good at booking people on podcasts or booking guests on a podcast.
Good.
So rather than use her to get stuff on my podcast, I just approached her to just generate leads for me. I
Okay.
was like, here's some tag words, some keywords, just find all kinds of podcasts that might fit what I want to do, with the notion that I was going to do the outreach. No, I know my weaknesses and I know my strengths. And when it comes to any kind of outreach, I always feel like I can do it, but it's just not me. It will never get done. That's why I have a salesperson now too, and the whole bit. So I went on Upwork and was straight up. It was like, I want someone to book me on other people's guests. And I met Jocelyn through that, and she's awesome. And this is what she does.
Very cool.
It's almost like a publicist kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
So I got one person generating the leads, and I have the other person doing the outreach for me and meeting people like yourself, and nice enough to have me on the show.
What kind of podcast do you have right now?
Our podcast is about podcasting, if you can believe that. So,
is it called Shelby Row?
No, it's called Pod Logics.
Okay.
And logical practices to podcasting is kind of my spin on that. And it targets podcasters like yourself, but it also targets producers that maybe want to help, grow a team. So I'm kind of split. I need to pick a lane at some point who I'm actually talking to. But we just released episode 14. We do it every other week. And that was a 2021 thing. When we went into this year, I gathered my whole team. I was like, this year, one of the things we're doing is we're going to be a content generator too. Not only are we taking everyone's content and packaging it and polishing it and throwing it out there, we're going to do our own content as a way to promote and just have an Instagram page.
Show that you can do it. You're helping other people. Yeah.
And that's the other part. I'm a podcast agency. I'm a podcast producer, and I don't have a podcast. Like, come on, man. Like, you need to step it up. So there was that, to show that credibility, but also learn a different perspective, because I'd never hosted one before. And then now made me a better producer, because now I know what it's like to be planning a show and interviewing someone. And that got me comfortable in front of the mic and camera, which helped me find my voice, helped me find who exactly I want to target. And then it built up to where it's like, I want to be on other podcasts now. And it made me more comfortable. A year ago, I would have never even thought to do this, because I would have been shy about it or something, but
maybe that should be my next step, is to get myself onto more. Cause I invite a lot of people to interview with me, but I don't put myself out there to interview as much as I could.
Here's what I preach a lot to other podcasters. And my Instagram page is my content is, I try to do value content, tips, and this, that, and the other thing. The common question is, how do I grow my podcast? How do I get more subscribers? How do I get more listeners? How do I monetize? That's a whole other game, which we do not help you with monetization. I have people I can send you to. No, I have a referral partner I can send you to that will help you with that. But we have a lane, and that's not in it, because it's a whole different game. But what I say is, with podcasting, where it works well is doing this, what we're doing right now. I've come on your show. We're having a good interview, I hope. You're doing well. I hope I'm not.
I love it.
And then hopefully you like it and you're willing to publish it, and then share it on your socials. And then I want you to send me your assets. If you do episode cards or whatever you may do, whatever links, you send it to me, and then I promote it on my socials. And that's key for you, because you're already promoting in your world. You have your audience, but now you're going to be posted. Your face and name and links and everything are going to be in a whole different circle of people that never knew you.
Yeah.
We'll
send you the
promoting me and.
Yeah, we'll send you the YouTube art and the podcast art. There are different shapes, and the link to the podcast player, as well as the link to the YouTube video, as well as the link to my page where everything is hosted, including the show notes. I used to have the transcript, but we haven't been doing that as much lately. It was sucking too many hours from me. And at some point I'll go back and I'll batch. I'll pay someone to do it all. but
And
we're
that
not
and
there
that's
right now.
but that cross promoting is key.
Yeah.
You know, you're introducing me to a different group of people,
Hmm.
and then you send me the stuff you just talked about,
Yeah.
and now I'm promoting you. And then a lot of people will switch. Hey, want to be on my show? A month later, record another episode, same two people, but different podcasts, and then
Right.
you're sharing again. So now you're sharing on your socials, but you're sharing yourself on someone else's show with different imaging, different colors. It looks different,
Hmm.
and it shows. Oh wow, April is doing it. She's out there kicking
I
some
need
butt.
I need to. Yeah, I did that once with let's see, episode 9. I interviewed with the guy on his show. It was called Facing Your Fears or something like that. And it was talking about your fear. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to say, but sure, I'll be on your show. Talked about a lot of things. And the next day he interviewed with me. It was great.
Yeah, I've done it in the same day.
Yeah,
Like we did an
might as well.
episode, and then we switched Zoom roles, so then the other person can hit record, and then we did two back to back.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Well,
yeah, I would suggest try to guest. Definitely try to get out there and guest because it,
that's
it
my
will help.
takeaway today.
It will help grow. It's hard to see the direct ROI, if you will,
Mhm.
but it's still better than nothing. Your name is getting out there on other people's social media platforms. So
It's really great for networking, but it's like productive because not only are you and I networking between ourselves, but we get to share it with other people and people
Mhm,
can learn from our
mhm.
conversation. I love it. It's fantastic. I have worked with some of the people who I've interviewed to be like, I could use help with that thing that you do. And
Mhm.
and I'm sure,
Well,
vice versa.
when I'm and coming to a podcast like this as a podcaster in an agency, we always end up talking about podcasting because everyone I'm guesting with have questions, like they're interviewing me, like they're interviewing me to help them.
It's
So
free.
it's like a win, but you well yeah, but no, I give free information on my Instagram.
Yeah.
That's not the point. It's it's just it's interesting because what I am out there promoting and selling is my story about my agency and what I serve, what I services I provide. Well, it's interesting that the service I provide is the medium that I'm on. From it's a neat little
It's very convenient for you.
synergy, in a way. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's fun. It's good stuff.
So, where can people find you and your podcast? I know you've mentioned Shelby Rowe.
Hmm.
Is it productions.com? Help
Yeah,
me out.
Shelby Row Productions.com. Shelby is SHELB as in boy, Y, Row, ROW, Productions.com. There you can find everything. We got all you can find our social links and everything. But to be more specific, we have a good Instagram page at SRP_podcasting. SRP, Shelby Row Productions, just abbreviated.
Mhm.
And the name of the podcast is Pod Logics with an X at the end because I wanted to be cool. And we're on every platform out there, iTunes, Spotify, and everything. We have a YouTube channel called Shelby Row Productions. Just search it. You'll find us there. We all of our episodes are both video and audio, but then we do YouTube exclusive stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else.
Okay.
So go check our channel out too. Anyone listening that's interested, you go to my website. You can schedule a free 15-minute consultation that links up to a Calendly, and you throw in a slot, and
Nice.
we can meet and talk to see if we're a fit. Answer whatever questions you may have.
If they do
There,
that, will they find you or
they
one
will
of your
talk.
team members?
They will talk to me directly.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And then once they sign on with me, then I push them to the side and they never hear them from me again.
No,
But
no, 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 no.
no, so yeah, I am the face. I am the guy that they will talk to, and we'll get you all set up if you're ever interested in that. So, but yeah, my website's really the hub where you can go.
Okay, got it. And Derrick, just just to spell it, because your last name doesn't sound the way I would have expected. It's Derrick with 2 R's, and it's Michaud.
Yes,
So
Michaud. Uh,
Mishu, my
Michu.
Mishu.
Some people say Michu. Some say Michaud. It's
Mhm.
very French. Being from
Mm,
Maine, it's a very popular name in Maine, French Canadian name.
okay.
Down south, there are no Michus down here, so I get Macaud, Machoud. They see the D at the end of the name, and they just want to hit the landing. They want to hit that landing on the D, you know. But yeah. So Derrick Michaud is my name. Yes.
And I know we are running out of time. So any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Well, thanks for having me. This was an interesting talk as far as the dynamics of working from home. You
Yeah.
know, we all have different jobs, and you and I clearly do different things, but you have that commonality of what it's like to work from home, the ups and downs of it, because there's some things too that you miss. Like I miss having a commute. Sometimes I like having a commute. Uh, there's little things, but man, it's also great to work from home as well. But then sometimes it's hard to get away. Like it's your living and your work is all meshed together, and it that can be challenging as well. But I think it's important to have shows like this because working from home, especially now after COVID, is becoming more prevalent. I think a lot of businesses realized, wow, half our staff's working from home and it's working.
Yeah.
It's doing well. So maybe we should, you know, rent half the amount of office space that we have now and save some money. And I think you're experiencing that. I would bet they found that some of their employees were more productive
Oh, yeah.
too.
I think it depends on the style of work and the company culture and all of those things. But yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. A lot of people are finding that. Well,
Yeah.
I know that you need to get going, so let's call it.
Thank
All
you.
right. This has been April Malone with Derrick Michaud. Thank you. And yes, I work from home. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.